Good evening. It is my honor to welcome you all, members of governance and good friends, to the 128th annual meeting of the Trustees of Reservations. Tonight, we look back at all that was accomplished this past year. We honor and recognize some exceptional individuals, and then we look ahead and imagine where the Trustees is going. We have much to be proud of and much to look forward to. This annual meeting is a tradition that has continued without interruption for 128 years. It's amazing when you think about it. As a governance group, we are carrying on the work that Charles Eliot began back in 1891. We're part of a history that is living and growing. Our challenge is to sustain that for the next generation who will follow us, and I am pleased to report that the Trustees of Reservations today is healthier and more vibrant than ever before. So, to start off, I'd like to welcome Buzz Constable, the Secretary of the Board of Directors, who will officially call our meeting to order.
Good evening, everybody. I am Buzz Constable, and I am the Secretary of this august organization. It is my inestimable pleasure to declare that we have a quorum for the 128th annual meeting of the Trustees. May I please have a motion to waive the reading of the minutes of the 127th annual meeting held on November 1, 2018, and approve as distributed to everyone. A motion, please? Oh, thank you. And a second? Thank you. No further discussion, I am sure. All in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Hearing none, a unanimous vote, sir.
All right. Excellent. Well done, Buzz. All right, now we've got to do some business, and for that I would like to invite David Kroll, the chair of the Finance and Audit Committee, who will provide a report on our finances for the past year.
I don't know why we put the finances before the excitement of the mission, but what I'll try to do is show you that we are, in fact, well positioned for the mission. I'm pleased to be able to report on this year's financial results and fiscal soundness, the theme you're going to hear me weave through all these comments. At the Trustees, we believe in growing proactively. You're going to see how much we've grown over the past 6 years. I'm not sure many other nonprofits are growing like we're growing. This year, you're going to hear about a number of acquisitions, including our largest ever in the De Cordova Museum and Sculpture Park in Lincoln, and you're going to hear a lot about our bold efforts to create new world-class parks on the Boston waterfront. Those are major undertakings, but as Peter said, we're growing, but we're trying to do it while we maintain financial conservativeness and control risk. We have not run any deficits or incurred any debt. Even though we've added many new reservations, offered more programming, and engaged many, many more people. In that context, let's review the Trustees' strong underlying growth, which began with the Path Forward strategic plan and is now continuing with the current Momentum strategic plan. And I just want to point out that both of those plans emphasize engaging more people to create more conservationists in the future. And I'd also add to create more people who vote for conservation, because that's how a lot of it gets done. So here you see, I feel like Ross Perot. Here you see the plan for FY20 includes continued organic revenue growth, of $3 million, or about 9%, driven for the most part by increases in earned and contributed revenue. In addition, De Cordova, which was acquired on June 30th, so it'll have 9 months with us in this fiscal year, will add about $4.6 million to our budget, and you see $3.3 million of it here in the right-hand bar for the 9 months in this year. And if you look, therefore, at the revenues over those 6 years, you see 65% growth. That's pretty good growth over that period. So we'll continue to grow all earned revenue. I'm going to talk about the difference between unearned and earned in a minute. Revenue streams including admissions fees, retail and farm stores, public programming, tours, community-supported agricultural or CSAs, and over-the-sand vehicle permits or OSVs. We've got to get all our nomenclature right here, and our various events. Here you see the strong and expanding membership base, which over the last 4 years has increased 36% to more than 140,000 members. This is critical. This is the backbone of the organization. These are our most devoted and faithful visitors. But also, we've seen visitation at our reservations increase from 1.2 million to almost 2 million visitors over those same 4 years. That is spectacular. That is That is engaging more of the public, and that's what we're here for. And here you see the diversity of the trustees' revenues. We're not overly dependent on any single source. Earned income grew to 55% of operating income. You see here it's the orange and the blue. And that was a 5% increase over the prior year for that pair of categories. And that's revenue from our operations as compared to philanthropy and endowment spend. And just in essence, what that means is we're becoming more self-supporting. We're generating more and more of our own revenues from within. We like revenues from without, but it's very good that we're also growing revenues from within. And here is a breakdown of our expenses. More than half is spent on property stewardship, the thing we're probably known best for by our visitors. That's the red. And another quarter is spent on education and engagement programs. That's the blue. So what that means is 80% is in direct mission delivery, in delivering the mission of the trustees, up from 77% a couple of years ago and moving in the right direction. Administrative and fundraising costs are now less than 20%. You might say that we're enjoying some economies of scale as we grow that allow us to deliver more and more on the mission. It's a little confusing from my 2 prior slides, so I want to point out specifically that for every dollar we spend on fundraising, we raise $8, meaning in simple terms that our fundraising costs are 12.5% of what we raise, and that's very efficient by industry standards. Next, we have the balance sheet. Here's a summary that clearly shows the financial strength of the trustees. We finished FY19 with over $300 million in assets, which included $175 million in cash and investments, mostly endowment. That's in the yellow. There is no debt, as I said, and normal working capital liabilities are just $6 million. The other big category in the blue are our properties, which are obviously worth more than the $97 million you see here, because many were given to us decades ago. But this understatement is really not important because we will never sell them. The balance of $25 million is in equipment and other assets. In summary, a very strong balance sheet, I would say as strong as it gets. So in summary, what does all this mean? All this financial jargon, what does it mean? It means we're growing robustly in support of our mission of conservation, cultural preservation, environmental sustainability, a rising theme, as Barbara will touch on, healthy local agriculture, and meaningfully stepped up public engagement. But we're doing so within a framework of low financial risk. That's my main point. So in short, a very solid foundation on which to grow and prosper. Mr. Chairman, I submit this report for the record and ask for a motion to accept this report on our finances. May we have a motion? A second? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, David. We are thankful for your work and the work of the members of your committee, and it is certainly great to hear such a very positive report. And with that, we're going to take a quick break before we continue with the rest of the agenda. So, thanks. So we will now continue with the next item on our agenda, a very important item. So at this time, I would like to invite Nisi Panetta, Vice Chair of the Board of Directors of the Trustees, to the stage, and she will present the new slate of governance for approval.
New this year, reading glasses. So exciting. Right? On behalf of the governance and nominating committees, I'm pleased to present the following for approval by our voting members, you all. Each year, members of the governance and nominating committees devote hours to identifying and recruiting the very best new people to nominate for leadership roles and to reviewing the current governance members who are up for renomination. We are very proud of the excellent slate we have before you. For the Board of Directors, we have 2 new nominations, each serving 1 3-year term. Andrew P. Borgard of Marblehead, Massachusetts, and Linda Hammett-Orey of Lincoln, Massachusetts. For the Advisory Board, we have 16 new nominations, each serving 1 3-year term. James Alden from Lincoln, Mass., Joanna Ballantyne from Amherst, Mass., Richard Burns from Cambridge, Chip Clark from Dover, Lizette Cooper from Lincoln, Brendan Coughlin from Lincoln, May Hanlon from Waban, Cameron Hudson from Dover, Molly McLeod from Boston, Kate Morris from Stockbridge, Christopher Odlifson from Cohasset, Glenn Parker from Lexington, Jonathan Rappaport from Lincoln, Sukanya Lahiri Soderland from Winchester, Melissa Tully from Hingham, and Mark Zowell from Wellesley Hills. For the Chairman's Council, we have 2 new nominations, each serving 1 3-year term. Jeffrey B. Fager of New Canaan, Connecticut, and Julie M. Viola from Carlisle, Massachusetts. For corporate trustees, we have 72 new nominations, each serving 1 3-year term. Don't worry, I'm not going to read the whole list, but please do refer to your program for the list and know that we are so grateful for everyone's commitment and service to this organization. We couldn't do the work without you all. You'll also find a listing of members of governance who have been renominated for terms in the program book that you have before you. So, are there any nominations from the floor? Can I have a motion to instruct the secretary to accept the slate as a single vote for approval? Second? All in favor? How about a round of congratulations to all who've been elected?
Thank you, Nisi, for presenting all these important governance items. I'd also like to thank Clem Benenson and Brian Kinney, chairs of the Nominating Committee and the Governance Committee, respectively. They and the members of those committees have done an excellent job putting together such a great group of new members and for shepherding the long-term health of the governance structure. The longevity and success of any organization is based on the ability to bring new, passionate people to help drive the mission. Please enjoy your dinner, and then we'll continue with the recognition awards. Thank you.
Doug's work is about how information and technology affects humanity. He said, Pedro, I want to do a giant mobile sculpture that travels from site to site. And I was like, this is amazing, but how? He said, a hot air balloon, a reflective hot air balloon with a light system so it lights up. I was really blown away, and I thought, God, I hope the trustees go for it. And they did. So congratulations to the trustees for supporting that kind of ambition and artistic vision.
The hope was that as the balloon transitioned through the sky, it would reflect the sky and the horizon and the ground and the trees and just kind of be this slowly flying mirror. And it really does do that. It does a phenomenal job at changing with the topography of the land.
This is the first project that isn't determined by the site. It's the project that was developed for all of the sites. And I think for the trustees, it's really important because it ties them all together. A lot of people don't know that Namkeg and Field Farm and World's End are all part of the same organization. But this really ties them together and creates a really interesting dialogue.
We're doing something that's never been done before in the ballooning industry, so there was a lot of research and development that went into the project even before we ever started building the balloon. From start to finish, the construction process takes about 7.5 to 8 months from when we start working on it to when it's time to test fly.
When we finally get a balloon to stand up and inflate it, it's just exhilarating.
There was a tremendous amount of not knowing that had built up to that final moment where we finally turned the lights on, and just to see it work and to see it all come together and everybody's hard work and determination that all meshed to make the project happen was really fulfilling.
We love to make balloons, we love to fly balloons, and we love to see the reactions from everyone around us.
We get the opportunity to take thousands of people up in a hot air balloon for the very first time and to see the smile on their faces and let them experience that experience that I get to see pretty regularly. To see them see it for the first time it's a beautiful thing, and I'm just really excited to have been part of this awesome project.
We are certainly fortunate. We are certainly fortunate that we have such talented and dedicated people who work at the trustees. Each year, we choose one who consistently goes above and beyond their duties in order to serve the organization and our mission as our Employee of the Year. This year, we honor Bob Murray, Structures and Landscape Project Director. Bob, could you please join me on the stage? Where is Bob? Congratulations. Thank you. Now we get to
I feel very fortunate about my job. It's something that I love to do, and I've been able to do for some time now. Some of the projects that I've been fortunate enough to be involved with include the Crane Estate while I was still the superintendent here. The restoration of the Grand Allée, including the casino area, was a wonderful project, and the formal garden here at the Crane Estate was also another opportunity to bring back to life one of the premier gardens on the property. Being involved in some of these big projects, working with colleagues, many of them multi-year projects that are fairly complex, seeing those projects through and seeing the impact on the property has brought me a great deal of satisfaction. I really enjoy being able to see the progress that we've made, not only in the projects that I've been involved in, but with the great work that the organization has done over the years. It makes me feel very proud to be part of such an organization. Being named Employee of the Year, I was really caught off guard and quite surprised. I have such great respect and admiration for my colleagues. I was actually feeling rather humbled by that experience, but I greatly appreciate the honor and I hope to do it justice.
Picked a good one. Thank you for your ongoing dedication, Bob, and congratulations. Volunteers are the lifeblood of the trustees. All of you tonight are volunteers who share your time and talents with the organization. Each year, we honor just one of the thousands of volunteers who serve the trustees. This person represents exceptional service and steadfast devotion to cause. This year, Richard Lombard, who is a bird box monitor at Ward Reservation in Andover and North Andover, has been chosen as our Volunteer of the Year. Richard, please join me on stage.
Thank you.
Okay, now we get to watch a video.
I've been volunteering for the Ward Reservation since 2013. What makes Ward Reservation really interesting is you have all kinds of habitat. We're standing here in a field, but you also have a lot of woods, forests, and you got great trails. I usually start checking nest boxes like this in April, and it runs into typically late July. It's not unusual to be out here twice a week. This is one of 40 boxes that would be used by tree swallows, bluebirds, occasionally house wrens, and black-capped chickadees. I will open the nest box, and what I'm looking for is how many eggs, how many nestlings, and eventually have they all fledged. And then I have a data sheet. I record the information and close it up, and then I'll move on to the next box that's over there. When I first heard that I was selected as Volunteer of the Year, I was surprised. I really didn't expect it, and that's because the Trustees is a large organization. There's just so many volunteers. Volunteers are just an incredible force. It gives you a sense of accomplishment, and it's just wonderful to be able to do it.
Congratulations, and thank you for all you do, Richard. And now it's my pleasure to welcome Barbara Erickson, President and CEO of the Trustees, to the stage to present our Charles Elliott Award.
I'm excited. You guys are a lively group this evening. So I think this, for me, is maybe the most personal Charles Eliot Award we've given, so I'll try to keep it together. But I'm incredibly honored to present this year's award, which has been given out since 1934 to individuals, groups, or organizations who represent the values, qualities, and principles of our founder and the award's namesake, Charles Eliot, who was a bold pioneer and courageous advocate. The trustees have presented this award to such notable people as Frederick Law Olmsted Jr., John D. Rockefeller, Governor Deval Patrick, Mayor Thomas Menino, and last year Amos Hofstadter. We are so delighted that this year's Charles Eliot Award winner is Mr. Ted Ladd. So Ted is known by many. I am often told how lucky we are to have him on our board, from business associates, friends in Dover, other conservation leaders, and those in the political sphere. He moves in many circles, and in each one, he makes an impression for his leadership and his service. So I'd like to talk a little bit about the many faces of Ted Ladd. I have often wondered how a mild-mannered businessman became all of the roles that he now so ably embodies. Ted, the respected business leader, the devoted volunteer, the world traveler, the climate spokesman, and the passionate conservationist. So let's start first with Ted the businessman. After graduating from Yale and Harvard Business School, Ted joined Standish, a leading Boston-based bond firm, and by 1989, he had become the chairman. As chairman at Standish, through an acquisition by Mellon and later a major reorganization, he would, quote, retire in 2004 after more than 40 years. But he is still part of the company and is often called back into service. He recently organized a briefing of our Boston Waterfront Initiative and coastal strategy for a group of Mellon executives. Ted, always the connector and bridge builder. And throughout all of his professional life, Ted has made a point of being involved in a variety of civic service roles. Some of the notables include his nearly 2-decade involvement at Beth Israel Deaconess, where he served as vice chair of the board, among many other roles. He has also served on the boards of A Better City, Wheelock College, and a dozen others. And as you think about all of this, you will see the connections between the bond world and the service that he embraced. As a bondsman, he traveled the globe thinking about how municipalities plan, grow, create transportation networks, how they deal with risk, and most of all, how they face their futures either with daring courage or fearful caution. One of Ted's remarkable talents is to be both locally minded and globally informed. Ted has taken his work, his family life, and his personal interests and seemingly connected them all together in a purpose-filled legacy. Even with his professional life growing and evolving, Ted sought to build stability and happy childhoods for his children and eventually grandchildren in his home in Dover. Ted the father adopted a habit of creating opportunities for his children to grow to love the outdoors as much as he did. He and his family would sail together on the coast of the Cape, hike throughout Massachusetts and the White Mountains of New Hampshire, and as his children grew, they would hike in some of the most amazing places in the world, including the Grand Tetons in Wyoming. And this began his journey to becoming a conservationist. Indeed, a great conservationist. He now feels like he is his most authentic self when he is outside and in nature, and he always makes a point of including trustees' properties on his itinerary. I was fortunate as we prepared for this evening to have a nice phone call with his children. They regaled me with the greatest tales of Dad. During his time in Dover, he began to not only enjoy the outdoors, he became concerned about the development of his town, and so he set about making a difference. Becoming passionate about the land where they lived and their surrounding community, he became a member of the trustees in 1983 and protected the family's land with us in 1991. He also tried his own hand at working the land. His kids shared that once he rented a bobcat so that he could spread manure. And while Ted has many wonderful qualities, his daughter Anne shared that being mechanically inclined is not one of them. In this particular instance, when he lifted the bucket of manure up, it landed on himself rather than in the yard. Luckily, Ted is persistent, and he never let any obstacle keep him from his work in the landscape. Since the 1980s, Ted, the trustees volunteer, has gotten his hands dirty more than once. He is now serving his 4th term on the board, and in 2006, he co-chaired with Franny Colburn a campaign to raise a record $63 million. And if that wasn't enough, he currently co-chairs our new Momentum campaign. There are so many ways that he contributes to our work. He is a personal advisor to many, including myself. He can be my devil's advocate when I need it as well. He works on behalf of the trustees, behind the scenes, from the side, and out front in ways that we aren't even aware of, I'm sure. Ted is nothing if not steady and devoted. When we started planning for the World's End 50th anniversary celebration in 2017, Ted co-chaired the effort to raise funding for one of our most iconic sites. He's chaired our Boston Committee, which oversees our Boston Community Gardens and other work in the city. And he's the chair of the Boston Waterfront Task Force, a project that he recognized could be a game-changing opportunity. He knew it would be difficult. He knew not everyone would support it, and some would see it as a distraction. And then he took on the role of chair, and that's Ted. He understands the risks of any project, and he also understands the long-term damage of not doing something. He's never looked back, and he continues to push this challenging yet important project forward together. We often comment internally as staff that if the world was made up of more Ted Ladds, it would be a far more enjoyable place. He was once quoted as saying, "I have a personal prejudice that one of the big issues, particularly of our time, is trying to allocate resources between the present and the future, and that the future almost always gets starved." He has been a phenomenal partner on the journey of the trustees, using his incredibly bright, authentic, and diplomatic ways to shape the future of the organization. He travels every year to take trips to places such as Alaska, Antarctica, and Iceland as part of his desire to understand the effects of climate change. Armed with this understanding, Ted has helped to jumpstart our efforts to be more of an advocacy organization, encouraging us to be both a movement of ideas and a collection of special places. This is the sort of future thinking that Ted applies to all of his service. He personally immerses himself into a subject, establishes a perspective, and then looks off into the near and distant future and asks the hard questions. What if we don't do this right? What if we aren't brave enough? What if our approach is too meek? And then he gets busy doing, connecting, volunteering, the definition of a true leader. He's fearless and shameless in need for resources. He knows dreaming big requires funding and that we should all feel emboldened to give and recruit others in this hope. He knows that strong governance ensures strong organizations. He is a true believer in sound principles and practices that has paved the way for a leading governance plan. Ted encourages change and evolution. And finally, with his actions, he teaches us all that respect, perseverance, and humility go a long way in any complicated situation. He's a well-worn warrior in the conservation game. He not only works with us, but he has been involved in conservation in his town of Dover with the Dover Land Conservation Trust. And from his own backyard to the world, Ted worked on the board of the Land Trust Alliance, ensuring a stronger land trust movement nationally and in New England. So with all of his many roles, Ted anchors it in a singular value, one of truth and personal conviction. Thankfully, he always returns home to hike the trails, experience all that nature has to offer, and then incredibly, dedicating himself to helping us preserve and protect that nature for everyone to enjoy forever. A few years ago, he shared with me a reflection of his life to date. And while much of it is private, I'm going to share with you one thought from him, where he said, "I have an obsession about remaining relevant." And I know all in this room will agree that, Ted, you are more than relevant, my friend. You set the bar, you inspire us, and you lead the way for the rest of us. So with that, I'd like to ask each of you to make a pledge to take action for TED. Something that can make a difference to conservation. Each of you already does so much, but let's do more for TED. You all have pledge cards, and I'd like you to write down an action that you will do personally and hand them into the staff member at your table. We will share your personal actions with Ted so that he can fully understand how much he has inspired each of us to be an agent of change. So there are a few family members who surprised him by coming here this evening, and there are a few who could not be with you tonight, but they wanted to send you a few special messages of their own.
Hi, Grandfather. I'm sitting in a car in Jackson, Wyoming. It's the day before I leave for Namibia, and I just wanted to say congratulations on the award. It's well-deserved, and I think that you really do represent what people want to see in conservationists in America. So congratulations from your granddaughter, and I'll talk to you soon. Okay, bye.
Hi, Grandfather. Congratulations on your award. Thank you for showing me what it looks like to live what you preach, and the world is the most sustainable place because you're in it. Bye-bye.
Ted, I understand one of the reasons the Trustees of Reservations are giving you this award is because you were devoted to governance. Who cares about governance? I mean, it's kind of boring. Kind of has to be done, but whatever. Well, you cared, and by caring, the organization ran well, the staff was taken care of, the bylaws were respected, and the mission advanced. Turns out governance, plus everything else you did, has made a hell of a difference. And for that, I take my hat off to you. Way to go, Ted.
Hello, my name is also, not coincidentally, Ted Ladd. And when I was a kid, my father would take me to the end of our farm and we would clear brush. And it was the first time that we got, whoa, snakes! Oh my God, snake!
My father is afraid of snakes. If you suggested to him that over the last 40 years, instead of conserving land, he has been conserving snake habitat, I suspect that he's asked for his money back. But I think his major contribution to land conservation has not been his time or his resources, it's his leadership style. My father asks questions. Many of you in the room have been subjected to the Ladd Inquisition, an almost endless set of carefully worded questions. He's not doing this for the sake of his own ego. Instead, it's an exercise in connecting with other people, in creating knowledge, in generating progress. When I realized this as a kid, it made me understand his Socratic parenting. I think that this is the reason for his success in conservation and in many of the other disciplines and areas of his life in which he's excelled. Dad, I love you very much. I've been proud of you for 50 years, and I'm sure that that will continue. And I'm grateful to the trustees for giving me an opportunity to say that out loud to you.
So I'd now like to invite Ted. I'd like to invite Ted, Susie, and Ann to the stage for the gift presentation.
Enough, please. Thank you all so much. I'm deeply honored to accept this award. I'm also deeply embarrassed. It's for several reasons. One being, I have worked so hard for so long with so many other people to make the trustees a success. I hate to be singled out when I've had such exceptional colleagues. And the other reason, and I'm thinking of Tom O'Donnell, who's been a bit of a role model for me. He's been, of course, a huge supporter of the trustees. And after retiring as 45 years as a town moderator of the record in Massachusetts, he was asked about his contribution, and he said, "I haven't done anything very special. I've just done it for a long period of time." And that's my sense, is that I recall I haven't done much that is exceptional for the trustees, but with maybe one major exception. And that was to serve on the search committee that brought Barbara Erickson to the trustees. Barbara had many distinguished predecessors, but she has provided a new jolt of energy to the organization. She has attracted and retained just an extraordinary, wise and ambitious team to support her. She has raised our standards and the bar for success of the trustees. She has been audacious in what she has been proposing. She will talk to us, I suspect, shortly about the strategic plan. But I think this organization, not only has it been successful, but Barbara has had a major role in reinventing it. So I think, if anything, that is my special contribution to the trustees. I also feel that I'm a huge beneficiary of the trustees. I haven't, Brian Kenny is somewhere over here, and he has visited every one of our reservations. I have not done that, but I have a number that I've gone back to time and time again. So I have my favorites: Pegan Hill, Noannet Woodlands. These are spectacular places. So that's been my personal pleasure. But I think of my role as working with an incredible team in governance and in the management of the trustees. I think of all of you who have participated in this effort and made this a great organization. So thank you for recognizing me, but I think I should really recognize all of you as my co-conspirators in this effort. This has been an incredible success, and I can barely believe, but I'm really proud of the contribution we all have made to the quality of life in Massachusetts. So thank you for honoring me, but I really honor you as my colleagues in this voyage. Thanks.
So my father actually can't stand horses. And yet in 1978, we moved to Dover, we purchased 2 horses, and those horses needed a shelter. Our family set about building a 3-stall barn from scratch, and everything was going fairly well, I recall, until we started to run into a problem while we were building the roof. Dad had framed the roof in place, and we were now in the process of placing the plywood sheets onto the framing. I remember that we would hand a sheet up to Dad, who was on the roof, and Dad would set it in place, claim that the plywood sheet wasn't square, and hand it back down. We'd hand up another new sheet of plywood, and Dad would have the same problem. According to Dad, none of the sheets of plywood were square. So it didn't take too long to realize that the problem actually wasn't with the plywood, but rather the roof frame itself wasn't square. And so my father, ever resourceful, attached one end of a rope to the top of the barn roof and the other end to the bumper of the car. And then he got into the car and he pulled the roof into place and then he parked the car. And with the framing then under this tremendous tension, he hammered thousands of nails into the plywood, securing it to the framing and creating a masterpiece and a home for generations of horses to come, much to his dismay. I remember the joy that we shared in building this barn, proof that will is mightier than skill. And today in Dover, the barn remains standing. I often envision a scenario where the plywood just gives it up and springs into the air, free at last. In building that barn, my father was the picture of determination in the face of challenge, dedicated to creating a place for his family, for the landscape. He didn't stop there. His commitment, his work ethic, his creative approach to problem solving, these traits, joined with his love of adventure and of the out of doors, make him a really special kind of person. For me, this memory exemplifies why my father is so deserving of the recognition that you're all giving him tonight. Thank you, Dad. I'm honored to be your daughter, and I love you.
We will now take a short break before the chairman's report. Thank you.
So we will now continue with the rest of the agenda, which the next item on the agenda is me and my chairman's report. But I would actually, before I start my chairman's report, I would first like to offer my sincere and heartfelt congratulations to Ted for his award. And Ted, I think it was about 15 years ago that you and Hooker Talcott took me to lunch and you encouraged me to get more involved in the trustees. And I think you must have been pretty persuasive and inspiring, because here I am. You have inspired many and done such great work for this organization. Thank you for all you continue to do. And so now I continue with my chairman's report, and I am pleased to present you with a look back at all we have accomplished together this last year. There's much to celebrate, as we've made great strides in our strategic plan. We embarked on this strategic plan at the start of 2018, and we named it Momentum. It has 5 key goals, and I'm now going to go highlight some of our significant achievements within each of those goals. So the first goal is to protect the places people love. This goal is the foundation of who we are as the trustees. We preserve for public use and enjoyment properties of exceptional scenic, historic, and ecological value in Massachusetts. On that score, we added a combined 600 acres under the trustees' protection this year in over a dozen communities. After completing, we have a big contingent from up there. After completing a massive trash cleanup with the help from local volunteers, which included removal of poison ivy and trail grooming, we officially opened our 117th reservation, welcoming visitors to Gary Island, which is situated in Marblehead's Little Harbor. It's a beautiful piece of land and is accessible by foot at low tide and offers spectacular views of Marblehead's shore. Just a few short weeks later, we officially welcomed the DeCordova Sculpture Park and Museum into the trustees' family as it became our 118th property. Located in Lincoln, DeCordova is the largest sculpture park in New England and gives the trustees a strong cultural presence in this part of the state. This is the largest integration that the trustees has ever attempted. It is a powerful one because it strengthens our commitment to nature and to culture, and it significantly elevates our work in art and the landscape. This integration was a 3-year journey with the town of Lincoln and the board of DeCordova. By the time we completed this process, we were pleased to have a unanimous vote from standing room only town hall. DeCordova's integration into the trustees family now means that the staff and volunteers are part of the trustees, and that the members of DeCordova's governance join the trustees as corporate trustees, and we welcome you all into our family. This integration took a lot of hard work, and it would not have happened without the incredible leadership of Linda Hammett, Ori, and David Kroll, two of our board members, and I want to thank them both for their commitment to this process. I also want to thank those who gave to support the $15 million campaign to grow DeCordova's endowment and provide essential capital to invest in the property. We are confident that DeCordova now has a long and bright future as an integral part of the trustees. I'm happy to say that visitation is up. My notes say 9%, but I talked to Cora this evening, and it's 11% over last year, and we've begun a number of improvements in the landscape and the museum. Mary Cummings Park. We have been working with the City of Boston and Attorney General's office to take over management of the 200-acre Mary Cummings Park in Burlington, which is the 10th largest open space in Greater Boston. Through the generosity of individuals, foundations, and corporations, the capital campaign for this property is complete. The master plan is done, and we are well launched into the park improvement process. We expect to formally open this as a trustees property next year. Whether a new place like DeCordova or a long-protected trustees reservation, our commitment to maintaining and preserving all 118 trustees properties is unwavering. With nearly 400 roofs and over 300 miles of trails, it's a big responsibility. In the last year, we completed 37 capital improvement projects, including roofing, insulation, painting, just like you see it here at Greenwood Farm in Ipswich. Okay, on to the second goal of the strategic plan, which is to respond to a changing coast. The trustees is the largest private owner of coastline in the state of Massachusetts. We protect 125 miles of shorefront. Our coastal properties receive hundreds of thousands of visitors, and these places are among our most iconic. Much of this coastline is being impacted by climate change. This past year, we secured over $1 million in both state and national funding to support our coastal programs. Some of the work we were able to accomplish with these public partnerships include an innovative salt marsh habitat restoration, saving at-risk species, and the continuation of a redesign of Argillo Road to improve marsh health in Ipswich. To be successful with our coastal initiative now and in the long run, we need to build better public awareness and understanding of our work and our plans for the future. To help with this, we have created a website that features news and information on our coastal strategy and new projects. The content will be fresh and engaging with pictures and videos and the trustees' first podcast called On the Coast. Our One Waterfront initiative is ambitious because we feel it's essential for the resilience of the city of Boston and a great opportunity to help create beautiful new waterfront parks for the communities that need them. Of course, we can't do this alone. We're building strong partnerships with the governor, the mayor, and Massport. We hope that by sharing our plans and acting as the strategic convener between public and private sectors, we can lead a collaborative effort that will ensure the success of the Waterfront Initiative. The Waterfront team continues to negotiate site opportunities in the neighborhoods of East Boston, the Seaport, and the North End. And our goal is to create at least one waterfront park in the next 5 years. Last month, we submitted the required materials to the Massport Board to determine whether the trustees is eligible for site control of Pierce Park 3 in East Boston. On to our third goal in the strategic plan, which is to elevate our cultural and agricultural experiences. This goal furthers our commitment to invest in our farms and gardens. It also introduces thousands more in educational programs and experiences through new display gardens, exhibitions, and installations that we're all really excited about, and we hope you will be as well. This summer, we opened a new teaching kitchen at the Farm Institute in Edgartown. It's a community gathering place that will enhance the agricultural programming of the farm. The space was used this year by kids participating in the Farm Institute's summer camp. Over 2,000 kids were engaged this summer with our popular programs. Last year, you all heard about our nearly $10 million amazing grant to revitalize, restore, and transform the gardens at Stevens Coolidge Place and Long Hill. This year, the transformation kicked off with a comprehensive community process. Working with renowned landscape architects, we have created spectacular plans for the gardens, the estate, and the visitor experience. We will break ground in the spring at Stevens Coolidge Place, and then later in the summer at Long Hill. Our fourth goal is to invite the next generation outdoors. We continue our work to engage the next generation of children and families and in the trustees. These are the stewards of our organization's future. This year, we added another summer camp at Powysset Farm in Dover. The trustees now offers 7 summer camps, up from 3 just 3 years ago. Thousands of kids ages 4 to 11 hit the trails, explore tide pools, work in vegetable gardens, help with farm chores, discover the wonders of the woodlands, and most of all, have fun spending time outdoors. In addition to our camps this spring, we launched a new program called Trustees Trekkers for families. Since April, we've offered 40 hikes across the state, guided professionals. Every one of the Trekker hikers receive a copy of 25 Things to Do before you're 12 and a half. Last year, we successfully launched Winter Lights, a new trustees tradition. This dazzling array of lights at Namkeg and Stevens Coolidge Place engaged over 35,000 total visitors, many of them new to the trustees. In a couple of weeks, this spectacular light display can again be seen at the same properties, and this year we have added the Eleanor Cabot Bradley Estate in Canton as a new destination. Our fifth and final goal in the strategic plan is to build the trustees of the future, to stay a sustainable, successful organization for another 128 years and beyond. We need to attract new supporters and participants while strengthening our work with communities and volunteers. We'll do this by leveraging our solid operational platform, investing in new technology, and always adhering to the highest standards and best practices. We are immensely grateful to all our amazing volunteers, both individuals and companies who do so much great work for the trustees. An excellent example of this work in action are the hundreds of people from Massachusetts Arborist Association who chose to volunteer, helping us to remove trees at Appleton Farms this spring. Our hope is to double the number of volunteers engaged with the trustees through 2023. I am proud to announce that thanks to many in this room, and the incredible generosity of all our supporters and partners, we have so far raised over $70 million since the start of our new strategic plan. This is an incredible achievement, and we now look to everyone to help us over the next few years. Your help is critical for us to achieve the vision we laid out in the plan and to sustain the organization for future generations to come. We have some amazing accomplishments that we've achieved through this very generous support. And so let's take a look at a few of them. Gary Island in Marblehead, secured this year. Mary Cummings Park in Burlington, which we will take over management of. Jewel Hill, stay tuned. We've secured $2 million in fundraising support to protect this. It will be our 119th reservation. It's near Fitchburg. And we are building a beautiful gathering space at Chestnut Hill Farm in Southborough. And of course, DeCordova Sculpture Park and Museum and the Boston waterfront. All of this with your support. As you can see, it was quite a year. And these were just the highlights. With your support, a great staff, and great partnerships, we are indeed achieving momentum. So I will conclude with how I started the evening, with a heartfelt thank you for all of your support. And now I would like to welcome back to the stage Barbara Erickson for the President's remarks.
Maybe another round of applause for our outstanding chairman, Peter. Thank you. This evening takes a lot of work. We at least feed him dinner. I'm the last thing standing between you and home, but I want to share with you a few remarks tonight. So thank you again for attending our 128th annual meeting. Just over 50 years ago, in 1968, the trustees assembled its first staff and became an organized band of volunteers. 5 decades later, we are beginning to see large numbers of these original luminaries passing. 2019 was another year of significant loss, and I'd like to now ask for a moment of silence to honor those who are no longer with us. There are many accomplishments I can note of each of these individuals, but tonight I'd like to talk about 2 gentlemen in this group who I was fortunate enough to enjoy a relationship with in my nearly 8 years at the trustees. The first is George Putnam. I met George in my first Land Conservation Committee meeting where he introduced himself and said, "It's about time a woman run this place." And I admired that even at his age, he was making the long trek daily from Manchester to Boston most of the year and didn't miss a meeting of his committees that he served on, which by the time I had arrived was several decades of service. He once said to me, "I have 2 priorities outside my family, and that is the MFA and the trustees," and it showed. Among the things George did for us, in addition to his board service, included serving on the Development and Land Conservation Committees, serving as a founding member of the Charles Eliot Society, and providing incredible generosity on a number of projects and initiatives. He was named Life Trustee in 2004. What I enjoyed most about George were his stories about the trustees of public reservations of Hancock County, Maine, about walking Agassiz Rock, and of course our gardens, which he particularly enjoyed. I saw him the week he died, where with the Putnam twinkle still in his eye, we discussed a number of activities. I always felt he was rooting for our growth and will deeply miss his infectious, positive encouragement. George, as many were, was a good friend of the other gentleman I'd like to speak about this evening, one that was also known to many of us, and that is Mr. Henry Guild. Harry. He and Gail were very visible ambassadors of the trustees. The Guilds would lead field trips, creating all sorts of experiences that would connect people to our work and places, something that continues to be so critical in our ever-busy world. I first met Harry in 2012 when he regaled me with stories of tramping through the woods, sailing with Gordon Abbott, our first president, and land conservation opportunities as far away as the Berkshires. He served as secretary of the board and then president from 1983 to 1988, providing significant leadership at a time when we acquired many properties in the Charles River Valley, including Noannet Woodlands and Powisset Farm in Dover. Ever a promoter of our work, he co-chaired 2 campaigns, he served on countless committees, and in recognition of his dedication, he received the honor of Life Trustee in 2005. After official board service concluded, both Harry and Gail followed closely the work of the trustees and kept in touch with many volunteers. Even in 2018, he hosted a gathering at the Fox Hill Retirement Community and spoke with conviction about his love for the organization. One of my fondest memories is seeing Harry and Gail, in a rainstorm no less, experiencing Chestnut Hill Farm for the first time. He always enjoyed exploring new lands of the trustees. I was honored to go to his memorial earlier this year, where I heard passionate stories of being in nature with Harry from his niece and nephew, from Dover to Orleans. It was at that moment where the full circle of his advocacy for nature was most evident, and I am confident there are hundreds, if not thousands of people that have been introduced to the trustees, and more importantly, nature, through the love and leadership of Harry Guild. Speaking of leaders, past and present, I want to also take a moment to acknowledge and honor someone who is presently a valued leader with our organization. Joanna Ballantyne was one of my first major hires. She was then called a regional director and since moved to become the vice president for more than half the state over the last 7 years. But more than that, I want to acknowledge and recognize how Joanna goes about her work, not just in balancing, but also how she embraces the change, growth, and mission so personally. When Joanna first started, we were just at the beginning of a restoration of Namkeg. We had a half-time person working there along with a curator. She jumped in and immediately understood that we needed to activate this important place with visitors, programs, and exciting new ways to learn about the history. Today, Namkeg is one of our flagships. Now, I like to think of myself as an outdoorsy mom, but Joanna has me beat hands down. She stays at both of our campsites annually. She hikes many of our trails. She works at programs on the weekends. She has driven, Zoomed, and phoned into meetings all across the Commonwealth. She drives an electric car, thankfully. She's also known for beginning meetings with a moment of meditation. Over the years, she has opened new reservations like Mount Warner and has been a part of adding many new acres of critical land to our oldest reservation, including Monument Mountain. But most importantly, we're pleased to call her a friend. She's always positive, and even though she's leaving the trustees as an executive to pursue an exciting new career in finance, she will continue to inspire me and us all. She has joined the advisory board because, as you know, no one really ever leaves the trustees, especially our friends. We are always passing the baton to the next generation of leaders, and I'm eager to share with you some thoughts tonight about the importance of our work and how critical your involvement is to move it forward. Over recent years, my annual meeting speeches have been centered around issues. Last year, we talked about our work in Boston, specifically the need for a better waterfront. The year before that, we talked about coastal resilience and a changing climate. The year before, we discussed equity and being a welcoming organization. These issues are still real and still being worked on, but tonight I want to zoom out a bit and talk about something more individual, but as important. It's a tumultuous time. There is a backdrop of incredible noise and an intuitive sense that our world is becoming ever chaotic and friction-filled. And I'm fairly certain it's universal. We have a political division and frenetic energy around the global stage that causes worries about our economy, our markets, and a feeling that something is coming. We just don't know what. We have a you versus me developing and a series of events that are showing the worst of our social dynamics. We're busy, maybe busier than we've ever been. We are clocking hours upon hours on devices and a feeling that we must always be on. We can travel far, we can buy from anywhere, we can do almost anything from our phones. We can do this from the serenity of our own home, but it feels far from serene. Our kids, and I don't think I'm just talking about mine, are overscheduled, they're overstimulated, and somehow living less authentic lives than I had, and I'm sure far less than the world that Harry and George inhabited. Our surroundings are becoming even more manicured, but somehow more depressing. The environment, our ecosystem, is suffering from toxic load, lack of water quality, pollution, and overpopulation. What we take into our bodies is often overpreserved and mass-produced, and so it gets harder to live among this chaos. How do we live authentically, slowly, and yet participate in this fast-paced world? How do we slow down the train? How do we take a breath? How do we live with some ease? How do we find some serenity, solace? How do we live a real, purpose-filled life that gives us health? Health in our minds, in our bodies, in our spirit, in our society. These are the big questions of our day. And they are at a macro level. It's not just how I am, but how you are and how we are. How we take care of the health of those we love and those who will succeed us in these seats. And that, my friends, we are going to try to bite off at the edges tonight. How it is that the trustees can contribute to a better quality of life, a healthier existence for you, for me, for everyone. Tonight we're going to explore together the almighty antidote to a busy world, found in amazing places, like a picnic atop Dexter Drumlin, or strolling through the carriage paths of Appleton grass rides, or contemplating John Wilson's eternal presence at De Cordova. In the rise of this 24/7 life, we see an explosion of mental health challenges affecting us, our families, our communities. Major depressions on the rise, especially among teens and adults, young adults. Massachusetts, Maine, and Rhode Island are now in the top 5 states for depression. 1 in 10 adults in our state will receive clinical treatment for it. But what's most concerning about this trend is that it's growing, and quickly. Depression is up 63% in the 12 to 17 age group in the last 10 years. Science points to the rise of social media, isolationism, and screen time as key indicators, and there are troubling costs that are associated. 10% of Massachusetts kids now have ADHD. That's double from 10 years ago. We now have 75,000 children in our Commonwealth living with autism. The dramatic increase over the last decade is crippling our state services. We have an epidemic, and not just in our children. Over half of us feel anxious most of the time. We're sleeping less than we ever have. Our creativity is suffering, and quite simply, we don't feel happy. And there is a growing body of evidence that suggests we are suffering from extinction of experience, or more appropriately termed, environmental, generational amnesia, as UC Berkeley would summarize it. Our friends in Europe, ever progressive on these types of things, have all sorts of amazing studies on how we can reverse this extinction, bringing back the positive impact of nature into our world. In the Netherlands, the Ministry of Health took different populations of kids suffering from ADHD and gave them a weekend in a built environment, a weekend on a farm, and a weekend in the woods. Away from nature, these kids displayed more aggressive, inattentive, impulsive, and hyperactive behavior. The farm and the woods improved their concentration by a significant margin. What's even more interesting about this study is that these children reported positive, sustained behaviors, suggesting nature provides more benefits than just the temporary exposure. Scores of articles have noted the negative feedback loop that loss of nature provides to our mental health in adults as well. A study found that pregnant women have 20% less incidence of depression when they live within 100 feet of green space. Harvard found after 90 minutes in nature, our brains show reduced activity in the prefrontal cortex, which, by the way, is where we ruminate on negative emotions. University of Alberta did this amazing study that for every tree per kilometer on a city street, there were 1.38 less antidepressant prescriptions on the street's residents. Our tree advocates in this room will love this fact, I know. We know that nature stimulates benefits for all people, especially those with learning disabilities. That's why we are thrilled that so many schools use our places for experiences outside, like the 23 children you see here from the Landmark School who come to Appleton 3 times a year. or why we work every Wednesday in partnership with Mass General Hospital to engage autistic teens in outdoor farming activities at Powysset. These kids make tremendous strides, and parents credit the children's success to the comforting natural environment we provide. It's important for you to know that when we talk about programming for 275,000 people last year, it's not all concerts and balloons and festivals, although one can argue that is still exposure to the outdoors. It's bringing nature to people in a meaningful moment, introducing programs like forest bathing at Fruitlands, or meditation at Ashen Tully, or the peacefulness of moonlit walks at Crane Beach, or our work with the therapeutic support program at Martha's Vineyard Regional High School. These children have a wide range of behavioral needs. It's common for these students to break out of their shell on property. They engage and comprehend in a way the teachers say they don't do otherwise. They sing in the pond. They write poems about the trees. They fall in love with nature. So much so that they become active volunteers. Like Robert, who became an intern of the trustees and went on to enroll in Cape Cod Community College to major in environmental science. So when I think about our work to bring a special place to every Massachusetts resident, I am confident that we are providing the needed psychological restoration described by researchers. We are helping the minds of many. After all, we are the organization where wonder happens. But nature is more than just the mind for us. Nature offers grounding and interest in what living the healthiest way possible really means. We are keenly aware that adults in our state are 26% fatter than we were just 10 years ago. Even with Pelotons and Fitbits and the ability to know how many steps we've accomplished in a day, we are still becoming increasingly physically inactive. Nearly half of us are considered out of shape. And we are not well. Nearly every chronic disease is on the rise, attributed to so many things that Trustees is trying to combat. It's why we became certified organic this year, as we seek to bring more healthy food to help the microbiome. Our protected water supplies, including nearly 600 acres added in 2019, and why we've promoted a healthier and more stable environment by investing in our ecology services. We are driving many initiatives to bring nature's medicine to our public. Charles Eliot, our visionary founder, was keenly in tune with this. He wrote often about green space as beneficial to the public health emergency of Boston in the 1890s, and he was right. Beyond mental health, the literature demonstrates time and again how exposure to nature helps our physical well-being. There was a recent study of 5,000 British residents who were equal in status, economic, physical, education. 2,500 of them were moved to a less green area, and the other half were moved to a more green area. This longitudinal study analyzed the impact of their move on their physical health, and what they found was pretty remarkable. Moving to a more green space showed an increase in physical health every year for 3 years, at which point the increase plateaued but carried for the entire 6-year study. Those who moved to a less green space showed an immediate drop in their health in the first year, and it took them 3 years just to get back to their baseline. So at the end of the 6 years, they were far behind their original colleagues. But for our city dwellers in the audience, don't despair. Those in Lincoln are feeling happy right now. Research shows that 45 minutes of exposure to deep nature can increase the activity of your natural killer cells by 40% for 4 weeks. Think about that return of an investment of a walk in the woods. You don't need to hear it from me, however. I want to introduce you to Brenda. She lives in the Medfield area, and she tells us that Rocky Woods and Shattuck Reservation are her favorite spots. Brenda is currently in treatment for multiple myeloma.
So I'm off chemo for a whole week. Yay! I will be starting again next week, so hopefully I can get some of my energy back. This last cycle's been pretty tough on me, but I do love my nature walks. They really help refuel me. So I'm enjoying this walk here today.
I know from my own health issues and personal experience, and I hear the stories from so many, that being outside makes us feel better. Whether in Noon Hill, where Brenda likes to hike, or found by the hundreds of thousands that use our nearly 400 miles of trails every year. Now I want you to meet J.B. Harvey. He loves to hike and was able to regularly get to the top of Noannet Peak until 3 years ago, when his muscular dystrophy progressed and confined him to a wheelchair. This week, with the help of 200 Dover children and parents who walked with him, JB hiked Noannet to fulfill his dream of reaching the peak again with his family and friends. We all should be so proud of the role our properties provide for important milestones in people's lives every day. This is why you are seeing more recreational opportunities from us as our next generation outdoor strategy takes off. From adventure installations to simple things like more camping, which we will introduce at Rocky Woods next year, or more races, or opportunities to get out and move, even if it involves cuddly animals on the farm. We are committed to providing ways to get away from it all, while also providing a 365-day offer to get us moving, to get us into the woods, into the beautiful, awe-inspiring naturescapes now found within reach of so many people. We talk a lot about the new when we come together. We talk in numbers, we talk in acres. We talk about issues like the need for more open space on Boston's waterfront or climate resilience. We tell you about spaces like teaching kitchens and visitor centers and beautifully restored barns. We tell you about the value of our resources like new gardens or major restorations. And underlying that is an unsaid benefit. We make people feel good. We improve their quality of life. We lift the spirit of the individual, of a community, of 100 different communities across the Commonwealth. We bring lightness in dark times. We bring different voices together into one collective, even if that dialogue is about how red the tomatoes are this year. We bring joy, a sense of release, by making these incredible spaces available to everyone. Places we can unplug from it all. This is the bread and butter of what we are about. Perhaps not said as much as it should be, but happening to millions of our neighbors every day of the year. The reach for more spaces, the creativity of more programming, a sense of welcome, a trust of our public. Is there anything more important than the serenity we give of? The nourishment we give to the mind, the body, the spirit, and cultivate the next generation of stewards of this work. We live in a surge of digital noise, news and information, or misinformation as it may be. We live stress-filled lives that can feel like a rinse and repeat cycle. We struggle to stay on top of things, to mark off the list, to just get enough sleep. We tug and we push to find the moments to reflect, to evaluate, to meditate. And when we do, when we catch up, we calm down. When we find those moments that seem to suspend themselves in glorious light, we breathe easy, and I would contend we live more authentically. We are all lucky here tonight because we know where to find those moments on a regular basis. We know where that secret trail is where you only encounter it yourself. We all know that special place. For Ted, it's a peak on Noannet. For Joanna, it's a deep breath at Mount Warner. For Brian Kinney, it's the next reservation unexplored. For all of us, it's Long Point, or Monument Mountain, or Crane Beach. Yes, we all know that place. Now, I want to take us away from the conversations and our reunions with trustees' friends this evening, and I want you to join me for a second to be reminded of all that we're giving the world. Through the incredible work of you in this room, those who came before us, today and in the future, in investment of a better life, a better Commonwealth, forever, for everyone. As we leave tonight, please let's share a moment in nature and remember why we're all here. Thank you for being on the path with us. Good evening.
Barbara, thank you for those informative and reflective remarks and thoughtful remarks. And most of all, thank you for your amazing work, your incredible leadership, and your passion, which inspires us all. So, with that, I would now like to call for a motion to adjourn our meeting. Do I have a second? All in favor? Aye. Excellent. We are adjourned. Thank you all very much.